Good morning, good afternoon.
Hi there. There we go.
Let me turn up the yes, let me turn up the volume. Okay, now I can hear you.
Good. We'll have to
So how are
so
you?
getting by, doing fine.
Very
Is it
good.
hot by you? Is it hot that
Yes. Yeah, it's not, well, let's see, it's 75. Currently, it's supposed to be 90 today, and we're going into 102, 103 next week.
oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because lower down in California, it's evidently pretty bad this week.
Yeah. 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 There's a sort of a heat dome. It's not as bad as it was a few years ago for here, but it's been bad for other places. Yes. So what's new?
Well, not a whole lot trying to get rid of symptoms, not
Mm,
having much progress.
grump.
So um, otherwise I'm pretty well off. I mean, it's but it leaves me limited.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm kind of the same way with my hip. That's sort of not really gone away, so I don't really trust it, but at the end of August I'm supposed to get it fixed, so we'll see. But yeah.
I went in for physical boy,
Therapy.
my mind is really not sharp. Physical therapy on that, and this fella taught me a number of lessons, exercises to work up all the muscles around those joints because evidently the imaging shows bone on bone,
Mm,
um, not in actually good, somewhat good condition, but it's definitely it's scraping,
mhm.
it's causing pain, and I've been able to really, I'm still able to walk 2-3 miles, and now can still, walk around the house with no issue at all.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I'm not even contemplating doing any more serious, manipulation down there. Um,
Yeah, well, I mean the prosthesis has served me well for 16 years.
and so it's one you've already done. That's
Yeah, twice actually. Because
and they say,
when I did it in the 90s, they were not as good as they are now. So the prosthesis had a lifespan of 15 years, which has proved to be true. And the other one that I've gotten is just fine. It's been 16 years and it's not, and I guess it has a 45-year lifespan. So they've gotten better over time. But because I'm replacing one, the tendency is to do the same thing because it's already fit. It's a much easier surgery than
mhm.
taking that all out and doing everything all over again. So I'm anticipating they'll do the same thing again. And, so in 15 years, I'll have to do it again. But who knows where I'll be in 15 years, whether it will matter at that point.
So talk to me about. You haven't gotten anyone else here, but talk to me about Samantha Sweetwater. Why did you send that out today?
Oh, she is just amazing. And what I will also send out is a interview she did with Nate Hagen. I don't know if you know who he is.
I think I've heard you say his name, but I don't
Yeah.
know it.
So yeah, he's got a podcast, a great simplification, something like that. And he explores things, and he's a great thinker. I've not been terribly grabbed by him, which was interesting because in this interview, he says, "Well, most of my viewers are men," and I can understand exactly why. Um, and they really talked about the dichotomy between of genders and a little bit about how that fits in with who they are. And she's just incredible because she's able to speak to spirituality from a systems thinking and scientific lens. And so she intertwines the three, all the time, very casually, and very deeply. So she's just a delight. She's really a delight. And her understanding of where we are really fits exactly with what, what I see as well. We just have slightly different verbiages and ways of doing it. But yeah, so I just thought you might appreciate some of her wisdom. The thing I sent you was a little kind of promo piece she did. It's 20 pages and it's a sort of a prelude to a book she's writing, which is not out, which they they say in the interview is going to come out in 2024. Well, maybe, but it's not here yet. But she's really wonderful. Yeah, she's really wonderful. So, yeah.
Hmm. That's pretty much what my friends and I have been working with for 50 years now. So it's very interesting to see. She uses a lot more sort of um, what I would call it, airy fairy words.
Yeah, she did in this piece. She doesn't in the interview at all.
Doesn't get
Yeah,
down to the nitty
yeah,
gritty everyday
yeah,
life. Um, but I'm glad she's speaking about it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's very
yeah.
important. What we're focusing on is the gathering of the well, Ken Perry used to call it the gathering of the bird tribes.
Yeah.
Um, but the coming together of people who are already interconnected and tangled in various ways and haven't reached out to found one another.
Yeah.
But the different facets of the great mosaic of what humanity actually is
Yeah.
beginning to come together, and people are infilling in their proper places.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
beginning to be becoming cross aware of the cross fertilization of what's going on. And that all of this is actually the flip side of whatever Donald Trump represents.
Yeah, the other thing I did this morning was Humanity Rising had an interesting couple on, Katrina and Stephen. And Katrina, they were both highly democratic, passionate liberals. She was a real strong Bernie fan. And she got caught in the QAnon belief system and fell really hard for that. And that was a problem for her husband and for all of her family. And so they talked about her journey into the rabbit hole and out again because it took about 6 months for them to go through that process and what Stephen did to keep their marriage together while they were in that process. It's very beautiful. And she really talks. Well, one of the things I learned, which I wasn't that aware of, is that they have these channels to on-put people. So the one that she got into is called the pastel. and it's all about health food, and I've seen some of that. I've had connections with some of that and been kind of curious about it, but didn't pursue it. A lot of health food, a lot of yoga, gardening, all that kind of stuff, but with the understanding that there's all this horribleness over here and that we have a plan that's never articulated and that you can trust it and we'll take care of you to get rid of all this. And that's so seductive to people who have this incredible angst about all of the horrible things that are happening. And then they're told it's even worse than they think, but that, we love you, we'll take care of you. And their experience with these people is very loving.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of the biggest issues, hurdles actually to overcome, is that people feel so much a part of a group that we all are the same. We all care about the same things. We care about each other, and it's really hard to leave that. It's just, the same thing that Mormons talk about and other fundamentalists who have this strong family piece, but you have to conform is the sacrifice.
That's
And
that was the trap.
yeah,
Came to
it's
a head in the 90s. I feel, well, particularly with our group, it did, but it's come to the same, you know, stopping point, limitation, for a lot of different groupings, still is.
yeah,
But, it was whoever had fallen into that trap fell.
yeah,
Everyone else kind of wandered. I mean, I, joined the UN, and
yeah. Oh,
others did similar stuff, just on their own, just kept working the world for all it was worth,
right.
and we've come back together. In this case, there's no leader. In this case, there's no, there's a lot of deep, deep background, but there's no prescribed,
Somebody in charge.
there's nothing prescribed as to how it's done.
Yeah,
And I think that's important because ultimately what happens is you begin to realize that this is the human condition. We're all responsible. I'm
yeah.
reading a book that's it was seemed innocent enough. Did I hear about it from you guys? It's called Crossing.
No.
It's about the impact of the ecology of roads.
Oh, I don't think I've had a chance to talk about it, but I've
It
just
is, I mean, it
yeah,
shattered me.
yeah, yeah, yes, yeah,
It's
yes,
enough that it almost causes me
yeah.
to be a misanthrope, like what did we do?
Yes, go back to horses. Yeah,
I just realized,
yeah,
even horses, if there were trails that had this amount of traffic that we have on the roads, that, you might not
probably true. Yeah.
have as many collisions, but it's the noise, it's the fact that
Speed, the height.
well, we get in the way of their
Yeah,
instinctual patterns
yes,
of movement.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it's
It's
just,
incredible.
yeah,
He covers the world. I mean,
yeah,
there's going on in Australia that he goes deeply into, different parts of Europe, and and there's so many different solutions that are coming up, but he points out how clearly it's the roads. you know, you can have overland bridges and you can have you know, uh,
yeah,
underpasses, and you the thing that was one of the most distinctive things is they've just chosen a particular segment of a road, and they've checked how closely different species will live to that road. And certain ones, the Shire ones, are miles away.
yeah,
So there's parallel roads that are just so, there's no place for, say, a certain type of horned owl to live.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they're too
Not
shy to
safely.
live in that
Yep,
space,
yep.
whereas other small rodents, will live right up to the edge. of a road and know to stay off it and so forth. Yeah, it was, well, I'm not even done yet, but it's been a decidedly cool read.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't read the book, but there was a Substack that came across my desk on that topic, and it was equally eye-opening. I still carry the picture he talked about, a red-headed warbler that was exploded by a truck
Hmm.
because it was too so tall, and the bird's path just intersected. I mean, it's just yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's even here we have a God-given blueberry bush in our property here, right within walking distance. I mean, it's like 15 by 15 by 15. It's like 30 different plants, 40, and it just pours out the berries. But here's the thing, we're getting them all to ourselves now. I mean, there's some birds, but it used to be 10 to 12,
uh,
15 years ago. Word would get out, and after a certain point, the birds would just come. They don't
right.
come.
Oh wow,
I mean, it's I
yeah,
know that they're there because we have them all over the place. The songs, the calling, but um, there just aren't many of them. I mean,
mm,
to
yeah,
me, this is tragic, and I
yes,
personally, I mean,
yeah, yes,
this
yes,
is tragic.
yes,
And of course, I don't miss the bugs on my windshield, but I do remember quite well
yes.
driving across country in the 60s. That was required maintenance.
Yeah,
Every 100 miles, you have to really spray. Um,
yep,
Same thing. It's really the
yeah,
same pattern.
yep, 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 yeah, yeah. And I don't know how fast. And now they have the heat to contend with as well. So I don't know about recovery. I mean, it's just I'm my daughter and I watch television at night, and we do a lot of period pieces and that kind of stuff. And they're kind of gentler movies. All things great and small, and Dr. Finley, and those kinds of things. And when I when I watch them, all I can see is how far away from life we were even then. I
Yeah.
mean, just how awful it was, and we didn't see it, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's almost, I mean, this book is just the latest thing, but actually a lot of what you've taught me is also there. But it's almost as if I just can't look at anything anymore without this
yeah,
thought coming to, this assessment of, why is that the way it is? I mean, that's not natural. That's not right.
right. It is
And
so far off. Yeah,
yeah, it's so far off. And we're old enough that we actually do know better. A
yeah.
lot of the young kids don't. They
Oh,
they've
no,
never they've
right.
never seen an Earth that was any different.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, when I talk about this this mosaic of, I look at it as sort of a great large ball, but the sum of humanity. I mean, I think that in in our right constitution, one with another, entanglement as human souls on this planet, there is plenty that we can do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just in the, vibrationally, spiritually, and but physically as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why an important part of these facets are a lot of the people that you've pointed out, and I find, and um, what is it, Humanity Rising, interviewing these people who have were really outstanding in having explored a certain pathway. Um, these are all important.
Yeah.
And what's really arising is as we develop the nature of this composite being, which is what I believe we are,
Mm-hmm.
it will start to supersede the great, I'll just call it the great evil, that has now taken over in so many ways. Is so weird, to celebrate the 4th of July with a group of friends yesterday and realizing that what we're celebrating is under, dire attack.
Yeah, that's right.
And even that was sort of a partial memory of, for each one of us, a different memory of earlier days.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I can see why a lot of people are very freaked out right now.
Yeah. 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 No, it's very depressing, and the seduction. I was reading some articles about the Black community, in particular Black men, young Black men, and and because of their whole experience, which is so different from white folks, they don't feel the same loyalty to the Constitution and all those kinds of things because it's never done anything for them. Their experience doesn't suggest that
They're
it's
written
something
out of it in a
to
sense.
be to be treasured or supported or anything else. And so a lot of them are going, I think, things are screwed. So we need to change. We need to destroy it, whatever it is, and see if we can do something better. And they have no sense really what that will mean, but that destructive, let's get rid of what's not working, is an energy that the far right really manages well. They really instigate that and give a place to be, and a rationale, and permission to really be there. And that's very seductive. That's very seductive.
Yeah, I mean, what you say is very accurate. The I remember a kid years ago, I forget how old we actually were, a Black kid describing to me, why he sold drugs. And I don't know, basically he ended up saying, he was a very bright kid, extremely bright, saying, well, on the one hand, I could get a job at McDonald's and make such and such money and
Yeah,
be totally wrapped up in all of the regulations and the oversight of white people all the time and have enough. And I could maybe buy an old beater and, be
right.
able, whatever.
But it's always stress.
Or on the other hand, he said, I've got this nice Mercedes. And, he looked at me and said, well, as a smart businessman, those are the two options. Which one would you choose?
Yeah, yeah, yep, yeah.
I mean, I was well fortified, prepared to choose the option that I'd been prepared within. He was too. That it was a different option.
That's right. Yeah. How much stress do you want? What kind of stress do you want in your life? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what came out of Kristen and Stephen's conversation too. She said she has, because she's was there for 6 months, they actually took 3 months of their life to go live with people who were part of the QAnon group. And Stephen went with her because he felt that if he had gone, he'd never get her back.
Right.
Um, and so she came back with this compassion for people. And I feel that. I mean, the ones I know that were so far into it are really great people. They have really big hearts, very nice, all of that. They, and she said she did not see the hating side because she was on the pastel track. And so with the algorithms and stuff, whatever you look for is what you get. And so she was able to not see all of the racist stuff, all of the white supremacy stuff, all of that was another track. So there are people into that, fine, but they don't necessarily cross. And so she wasn't really aware of that until she got out of it. Um, and the whole role that the social media played in it with the algorithms is just also really because when and I've heard them say this too, well, listen to what I say, but then do your research. The problem is that if you research those things have been researched and people are talking about them. So you get caught into that. That doesn't, and it seems to justify it or it seems to validate it because it's being talked to, but it's just another hole, you know? It's hard to research outside of that algorithm because the minute you talk about it, you're sucked into it and that's what you're fed. So you get to see more and more of that, which validates that belief and seems to suggest that's real. So it's yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah,
Very
you've
interesting.
already just taught me so much more than I've ever known about QAnon. Um, other than sort of, I'm looking at it from afar, but
Right.
they actually have groups living together. I had
Yeah.
no.
Oh yeah. I mean the stuff I've seen about a lot, oh, that's the Trump rallies. That's why they rally, is because they're all together. I mean,
Mhm.
they go to listen to him, but really they go to be with each other.
Mhm.
And they really, they picnic, they party, they just have a good time with each other because they feel safe. She said that was the other thing, that she had all this angst and they're saying, yes, it's horrible, but we've got you. So they relieve her fear and her feeling that she has to do it all. Somebody else is taking care of that. She doesn't have to worry about it. So it releases a lot of stress. So that was part of the problem of coming off of that, is she's going from a stress-free environment basically into one full of anxiety all over again because there aren't answers and how to manage that. And the other hard piece is how do you manage reinstituting those broken relationships with all the people that you used to love and who now see you as the asthma, and are going to point fingers and go, I don't understand, and all that kind of stuff. How do you come back and feel at home in that and find your space again? So those are really critical things that I haven't heard other people talk about. And she said there's no support groups that she knows about or places where people can get support who are trying to get out, who
This
recognize that.
this says a lot to me about, why that's my wife's and my question. Why are they, I mean, are they that
Right.
stupid, is what we say.
Right, exactly. Yep,
No, they're doing something that we all did at one point or another.
yep,
And that it brings the humanity back
yeah,
to them, which is very important.
yep.
I feel humbled to learn. I kind of suspected it wasn't as simple as I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, and it's not about stupidity at all.
No,
Uh, yeah,
just like those young men who I've met over the time, they're not stupid.
that's right.
They've never, maybe haven't even finished high school, but they're not stupid by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Yep, yep. Just using the options they see.
Using them well.
Yeah, yes, yeah, some of them very well. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's just so off base. It's just so awesome how off base we've been. Um, and it's, such a little thing to go back to nature. I'm really struggling with Soil Smart, trying to figure out how to really what to do there with that. I certainly see the benefit of putting your hands in the dirt, getting back involved. I really think that's probably the easiest path for a lot of people is just to reconnect to nature and be able to think about that and then to see how different those thoughts are and begin to live those thoughts. I think that's an easy path for that. But how to do that? What kinds of activities or classes or events or, actions do we take? I'm really trying to figure out what the process will be other than my talking to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, there has to be a shift in consciousness in terms of what people want.
Yeah.
It's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And that I don't feel that I mean that's happening all over the place. But we have a community here of townhomes and 13 townhomes, and I think there's plus three, there's 16 people. And so we have a community garden, which Terry and I and our neighbor Merity reconstituted, years ago. It was just a big kudzu patch and a lot of debris from the house just immediately uphill, the construction of it. And we cleared it, we repaired the soils, we've got this great garden. And I actually gave a tour today, a FaceTime tour with my friends in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. And they couldn't see some of what I saw, which I said, this place is just absolutely abuzz with insects and bees and birds. And, it's just totally alive. Well, I mentioned Terry and my neighbor Merity and myself. Every once in a while, Dan comes up here, and then Robin. That's it. Of the 16, no one else pays the slightest attention.
And they all know about it. I mean, other than know that it's there, but
No, there is one other, Suzanne. She walks through it a lot, but she doesn't want to, do anything within it. But she does appreciate the blueberries. She comes up and picks them all the time. And we encourage her to, because there's just
yeah,
such a multitude of berries.
right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the desire isn't there, or
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
the thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I look around my block and I keep thinking, if I mentally go through, well, this yard is big enough. We could do a lot of planting here if we need to, and that kind of stuff. But they're not there. They're not planting in their own yard. I don't think there's anybody else that has a garden. I mean, they have plants out there, but they aren't gardening.
Plop,
They're not,
plop, plop,
well, they're
bushes.
flowers. They're decorative. They're
Right.
not really thinking about, yeah, eating or anything like that. As far as I know, I'm the only one with food at all, and I don't have much. And there's not a lot of interest. I mean, I know a little bit about the stories of each place, and they're just so encapsulated. They
Yeah.
don't know, they don't talk to other neighbors as a rule. I mean, they'll smile and wave maybe, but they don't talk, so they don't know each other. Um, yeah,
Yeah. And I used to get into other people's business, and in the sense of doing projects streetwide and just drawing people in.
right, right.
And after a while, I started being, you know, I would do something someone didn't like, and it would almost take me to court. I mean, it started to be a vicious backlash.
Oh,
People on the street. So,
well,
I have pulled back.
Sure. Sure.
And
Yeah.
you can only work with positive
Right.
response.
Right. Right.
And really violent anti-response.
It's not helpful.
I'm not
Yeah.
willing to deal with it yet.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I did a block party once and it was great. And we should have done it several more years and then it might have had real legs, but
Yeah, I mean, and so what do
yeah.
you do with that? That's something, we're old enough. We've been through a few of these cycles. And well, obviously neither of us has lost our passion to to be doing something.
Yeah.
But, in a rhetorical way, what do we do with it, with
Yeah.
these experiences? And it's I wonder about that. Well, I mean, my wife and I, it's led us to have an incredibly close relationship. Um, and there is one other couple who comes and joins us. And they're actually part of the same grouping that goes back for 50 years. Um, but it's there is a tendency to want to just write people off, and yet that's stupid, because that is stupid. Because what happens is all you
Oh,
need is one break, one little story, and
right.
suddenly you find there is an entire life behind this
Right.
apparition of a person, whatever they've become in today. But there's a whole other life, and their brain is just filled with imagery and capabilities, their consciousness, that are just astounding. And I suddenly, feel totally humbled, but before, we can't talk to each other yet. I do feel, though, that the time is ripening when we will be able to. That'll come more easily. I do believe
Mm,
this, that there is a sort of a consciousness of the planet that is shifting and is rising, humanity consciousness rising, that
yes.
we will be more easily able to speak to one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, in other words, it's
Yeah.
not just making it more apparent, what the other is doing, what the let's just say the human greed is up to, is now so much more apparent and out there. Um, no, what people are harboring in their human makeup, in their memories, in their actually life substance, I'll call it, is amazing, and it will start to show through. Um, and it happens actually all the time. People you meet,
Yeah. Yeah.
it really does. What throws me off is that there's no structure behind it. Like
Mm,
Terry and I go in to see my urology surgeon, and we're all set to kind of let him have it because he got COVID at the hospital. Nothing went very well. He hadn't really prepared. And when he walked in, both of us, both Terry and I, saw this bright shining star. And so that's what we spoke to. And suddenly we were all buddies. All three of us were just best friends. I mean, it's that malleable.
yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more so.
Yeah.
Um, that gives me hope. That's where my hope lies.
Yeah. Mine too. Mine too. And yeah. I mean, everything I do is really focused around that and getting people to in a situation where they can begin to have those conversations. That's why for me the hands in the dirt thing is so important
Yeah.
because it just brings you right back to life and what it takes and the miraculousness of it and the diversity, all of those things are just right there that you can actually talk about.
Well, everything helps. I mean, like we see this yesterday morning, Terry saw, well, we both did. She called me over a little teenage fox. I mean,
Oh,
whatever that would be, like a yearling, a year and a half old, just bouncing around. I mean, he looked really, really healthy. It was just across the our driveway, our street, and in one of the yards, and then he bounced away down the creek. Um,
yeah.
but we're telling everyone, share the
Yeah.
joy.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
the forget what his name is, but the author of Crossings, he makes it very clear that there's some species that are actually doing very well because they've come to grips with their initial shyness and um, and have been willing to embrace, living in close proximity with human beings. The foxes are one, coyotes, of course,
Yeah.
and the deer
Raccoons. Raccoons do okay.
and raccoon. Well, and we have particularly we leave water out for the
Mm.
possums, and they use it every. I'm pretty sure that they're just the possums. There have been raccoons, but the only one I ever saw was a rabid one,
Yeah.
and he left the property. He was on his way out of the property, so yes, he died, as
Yeah.
he was definitely rabid.
Oh, oh, it's too bad. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of I was just thinking about my house. When I moved in, there were all these trees around it, and the landlord cut down most of them because of roots and stuff and his fear and all of that. And since then, there have been a couple have come back. So I have a catalpa tree that came back probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it's now probably this big around. I mean, they grow really fast.
Yeah.
And it provides shade for my front door. So I have this little shady enclave that is very green with, I mean, it's a lot of weeds, but it doesn't kind of look like weeds unless you really know what you're looking at. And there's some flowers sprinkled in there, so it kind of feels like it. But it's just this little green oasis. And the minute you hit my line and go to the next house, which is we're in a duplex, he's not planted, and they can actually outplant me, but they have done nothing. So it's like sterile,
Mm.
and hot because he's cut down everything. So there's no
People don't understand. It's 10
no.
degrees hotter
Yeah, yeah,
than that.
yeah, yeah. And how much, yeah, instantly it is. And I just look around the neighborhood to see how people are managing their space. And the lady across the street cut down the tree in front of her house. And she's shaded because she's got people on both sides with trees, so it's not as bad as it would be. But the house on the end, they cut down trees and they're just right out in the sun. They're hot. They have no shade at all.
And
It's
they
just
have no awareness
no, no, and would
about that,
resist.
that
I
there
mean, because
was
the
any.
city is now willing to give them trees free, and they won't take them.
Yeah, there's been a whole all up the street. Canmont Street goes up the hill for maybe a quarter mile. Um, and now when it rains and we get gully washers, that street is a river. It runs 8 to 10 to 12 inches, you know, along the curb, over the curb.
Right.
just
right.
torrents. Didn't used to do that because the whole street had trees, was lined with trees.
Yeah,
But now it's lined with homes, big homes that were allowed. And so all these front yard trees were cut down. And all the contractor had to do was plant one or two,
right. Little
saplings.
thing. Yeah.
And I mean, we complain, but who do you really complain to? You can
Well,
only
and that's one thing that actually we're trying to work on with Soil Smart is to go at the state level to create a bill that says that new development has to grade for holding water.
we even have the laws
Oh, okay.
but it's about trees.
Yeah,
Oh, well, we have the laws, as far as sites fencing. Um, you know, every project you have to put in silt fencing majorly. It's required. I have to put them on all of my site plans. And I think people do. And then it all comes off once the house is in there and it just drains off into the with no trees around anymore. It drains into the drainages or onto the street, and they become torrents.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so the laws um, are really there
Well, I don't think,
to keep mud off the streets.
well, they don't still really understand the ecology that
No,
they're working with.
they
That's
don't
the
understand.
laws
There's the
are
laws.
to protect yourself from problems, but not really understanding how nature already protected you from those problems if you just let it.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very interesting because as the temperatures go up, more and more articles you see have little snips of some real wisdom about how the natural world dealt with such a situation. So,
Yeah,
talking about, wetlands, the importance of wetlands, the
right,
importance of, even if you cut down some of the trees, leave contiguous copses of
right.
forest, original forest, and that has incredible benefit. Um,
Yeah,
if you've cleared elsewhere. And you know, the evaporative cooling of water and how important that is and how it can be used around the house. But even that, you're in trouble if you're getting into a dry area. Um, the importance of compost, or I mean mulch.
yeah, yeah,
You know, particularly, I mean, I've read about gardens in Arizona that only need to be watered once or twice all summer
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because the water is simply held in the soil was of course prepared ahead of time so that it wasn't hard, and
But you have to keep it alive. Yeah,
because it's all
I mean,
alive.
it's just so amazing how it will just all really work if we just do a few things. Yeah, it's not rocket
It
science
takes
at
some
all.
years and it takes a lot of work
Yeah,
to get things going.
yeah. But once they're going, they're very well sustained. It takes very little work after that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what's so um, you know hair pulling is, the fact that this is all known, but nobody wants to act on it.
Yeah,
No, you would not be able to make a profit doing this. Sorry, you wouldn't. But you could live
really
a
well.
gracious and, sustainable life.
Yeah,
And you won't be able to do that for much longer,
yeah,
using the principles and the conditions that you're, now used to. It's not supportable. It's just not going to work too much longer.
yeah,
We're facing that very quickly.
yeah. Yeah, and they're figuring out that we're going to face it more quickly than they thought too. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things I've seen where
I
it's like,
keep
oh,
seeing
well, we
that
didn't
pop
include
up.
this and we didn't include that. And oh, now if we include that in our models, it makes
Now
all this.
these two things appear to be linked. Who would have
Yeah.
thought?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the interesting part about crossings is you'll get a whole couple of chapters on forest roads
Mm,
and just how detrimental those are, even with very little traffic,
wow.
even with so little traffic, that it changes water course. I mean, it changes, and then if anything does come through, um, nothing within that range will feel safe
Yeah.
and stay away from it for a while. I mean, a big logging truck makes a hell of a lot of noise and
Yeah. Well,
disturbance.
yeah. We used to drive the logging roads. My ex-husband's family had a log cabin that they had built on 80 acres that they were deeded on a sort of temporary basis for 100 years or something. And it was a two-floor log cabin with 5 beds upstairs.
Mhm.
And so we used to go for the summer and take the kids and spend a month or so there, and we would drive the logging trails. And it was fun, and it was scary because a lot of them hadn't been driven.
No,
You could get yourself into problems. You could, get stuck or have trees in your way, or all sorts of things could happen. So there was this element of adventure, which was really great until we really did get stuck one day. And then that was sort of like with the kids and stuff, it was kind of enough.
yeah.
Yeah, but
And
it's,
there's
yeah,
evidently, we're talking millions of miles of these roads through the
yeah,
national forests.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It's not a small thing.
yeah,
Um, and often a lot of resistance to doing anything about it.
yeah,
If someone has their nature basher, pickup truck that's got diesel and
right,
it's high exhaust so it can go anywhere, and he might want to go up there just for the hell of it.
right. Yep, yep. And you can't stand in my way of having fun. Yeah,
But that's I slap myself because that's not the way for me to talk. That's more and more I'm beginning to say. I've got to follow the principle that I espoused earlier, which is that there's a great story in even that man's that I just conjured up.
all
There's
right.
a great story there, and and that everyone will find their route to a higher consciousness if they can.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it's beyond. As far as I'm concerned, it's totally beyond my ability to understand what will bring this all together. I just know that the opportunity is there and will be there.
yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, life loves life. If you just say yes to life, she's delighted. Brought back into the fold instantly with no recriminations or thoughts about it at all. Yeah.
any idea where Ani is today?
No, I haven't heard from her. So I don't know. I think she was really not happy at the change in time.
Ah,
And I think that has kind of really had an impact. I mean, she said, I feel like you're not making this important in your life, and I'm feeling dissed kind of.
yeah, she feels those things very deeply.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I could make the change easily. Maybe she can't so much. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't, yeah, she
I mean,
didn't
except
mention
for last
time.
week, there was something
Yeah.
that I had to do, but usually it's not closed at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And Mark,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Mark is. He could be traveling. I see him on a number of other things during the week. He's been doing a presentation on his model.
Oh, he travels a lot, doesn't he?
He seems to, yeah, yeah. Um,
We always see him like in an airport somewhere, or some spare room in a in an academic.
yeah, or yeah, a workspace. Yeah, yeah.
Well, this has been a pleasure.
Well, it's been nice to, yes, touch base with you as well, as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is a life vessel in your neck of the woods. I'm pretty sure you'd have to travel to the West Coast to find one, but it might be something to put on your radar and see.
What's that called?
The life vessel.
Life vessel.
Yeah.
How do you
I know
spell
it.
this?
Lifevessel.
VES.
SSEL, vessel, like a cup or,
I just spaced that out. Okay. And
yeah.
what is that? I've never heard you mention it.
Well, that's what I used for my liver cancer. It's a frequency treatment, it's a whole body treatment. So it treats your entire body. And it raises the vibration of your cells to health. And those things that don't vibrate at that level disappear.
Huh. Well,
It's just that simple.
yeah, I haven't heard of this, but a Pakistani friend of mine is sending me a potion, the ancestral potion that's used, and he's actually sending me a small sample, but he's also sent me a recipe to create my own.
Oh, nice.
Basically, it does the same thing through herbs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that is possible, and I'm going to give it a shot. He told me to go on, to Google all the different remedies, and he said I will be very impressed by to read the attributes of these herbs, and and start to imagine, how they actually work together, because he said it's all about how they work together.
Sure.
The formula is important. So I'm going to give that a shot.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Um,
But I would recommend the life vessel. It's non-invasive. There's no side effects. It's not that expensive. And yeah, you just have to go there. It's my regimen was 4 treatments in 3 days, once a month. So it was, and I had to travel. So I had to go from Colorado to Arizona to do it. But it was definitely worth it. And after 18 months, I didn't have any cancer in my liver. So there you go.
and that's saying something, because that can be a difficult one to get rid of.
Oh, yeah. Oh, liver cancer has like a 15% survival rate. And the other thing I would mention to you is ambertose, which you can get on Amazon now. And ambertose, okay, the story I got, and they don't say it anymore, so I don't know what the publicity on it looks like, but um, there were 2 reasons that I took it. One, I could feel the difference. It really gave me energy. And the story on that is that ambertose contains all the 8 sugars that your body needs. We mostly get 2 in our diet. And what that means is that the cells are always hungry, and cancer cells in particular are hungry, and they like those 2 sugars that we get. But when the cells are fed, they can say no to the cancer cells. They can deny them that. And so that really, and I could feel the difference. I also saw a picture before and after of a young woman who had Down syndrome. And after 5 years on ambertose, you could not see that she had Downs.
Okay.
And that was just pretty amazing to me. But it is on Amazon, so it's easy to get now. It didn't used to be. It used to be a multi-level marketing thing, so you had to know somebody to be able to get it, and it's like half the price that I paid.
Yeah.
But so
Well,
I
I'm going
would
to do
recommend
some
that too.
research. I'm going to do some research the rest of the afternoon on my friends' um, herbs, and I'll look up these other two as well,
Okay.
ambertose and life thistle.
Yeah. Yeah, I can I have the foundations, the guy who manages the foundation, so I could connect you with him and he can tell you where the closest one is and that kind of stuff. And whether it will be useful for you if you want to talk with him.
Sure.
So I'll send that to you.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Yes. Yes,
Well,
yes.
next week,
Yep.
let's
We'll
see if
talk
we
again.
can't draw Annie forth,
Yes.
draw her to join us.
Yeah, get her back. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye bye.
You too. You too. Bye-bye.